let's do a good afternoon, everybody. Let's do a quick introduction. Welcome. You want to start that way?
Oh, good afternoon, Debbie Jordan, School Board.
Haitham Mahmood, a general contractor and a registered engineer with the state of Florida.
Afternoon, this is Trent Swartz with Charles Perry Partners.
Dana here with Johnson Engineering. Bob Taylor with ADG Architecture.
Elisa Parodi, ADG Architecture.
Asia Baba, Oakland County.
Hi, Jacqueline Brown, registered interior design.
Frank Stout with Envirostruct, general contractor.
Tom Mayor with Palmer Jolly.
Russ Ringland, I was a builder before, now I have a little land holding company and run a nonprofit called Future Forestry.
Danielle Kirk with Bow Renewables.
Dan Bull with Bow Renewables.
Thank you, everybody. Do we have quorum, Julie?
You would need 8 people to have your quorum.
No, we have 10.
Okay. Okay, so the first item in our agenda is the approval of the March 1st, 2023 meeting agenda. So,
Make the motion for approval. I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nobody? Perfect, thank you. And I hope you have time to read the minutes, but we need to go for the approval of the February 1st, 2023 minutes.
Make a recommendation for approval. I'll second that.
All in favor?
Wait a minute, any discussion?
Oh, any discussion? Anybody has anything to say? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, that was easy. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is the board member update.
Thank you. And my question is, I really am glad to be here. This is my second meeting. But I would like to know, and I was thinking about what is it that you all would want to be updated on? So it is hard. I've been on many advisory committees, but I actually knew what they wanted. So it is hard for, I don't want to bring in, well, K-5 is doing this and, the kids are having a reading program this week. What is it that you want to hear from us when
We're the
it comes to?
construction advisory committee, so
Correct.
everything that is related with site selection and construction and plans for renovations and new schools and demographics and anything that is related to design that you will need out from us.
Okay.
It's always good to have an update so we know how we can help you.
Well, that helps me to prepare for, when I'm coming in, because I know that Scott, who's not here today, I thought that he can be up to date with all that, so that's why I was asking that question. So we have been, of course, we are still in the recovery process with Ian. So this will take, a little bit of time for us to catch up on all of that. We are starting phase 2, I believe, with Franklin Park.
Yes.
It's coming up, okay? See, that you just reminded me of that. So that's very, very exciting, because, right now the students are in a mobile campus over on Marsh Avenue, and they are counting the days that they will be walking into a beautiful building. So we're very excited about that, because it has taken probably about 5 years to make that happen.
Right,
So it is,
you're a great part of it.
yeah, we're very excited about that. And then, of course, we're still having conversations regarding the beach schools as well. Hector Caparetta, we're looking at that going forward. What does that look like for us as far as the rebuild, and are we going to make that into a K-8 because of the fact that the Cape is growing? And so it's all regarding the long-term recovery process that we're working on right now. And so Hector is part of that, and where do we align with that? So
That's one by the beach.
the Hector Cafaretta is Cape Coral. That was one of the schools that were destroyed. It was one of the schools that was really not like a brick and mortar school. It was more of a manufactured school. And so it really was destroyed. So that school was separated during the hurricane. When we came back, we separated the grades and put them in 2 separate schools to accommodate all the children. Now they're all together back on one campus, which is behind the Cape Coral Technical College. So that's where we have them housed right now. So long-term, what does that look like? Are we gonna tear down their old building? Or are we gonna move down the street and build another, like a K-8, which we're going to need in the future? So I think, we're looking towards that, to K-8, and making that take place. So we have a lot of things that are moving right now as far as the building. So Franklin Park, Hector Caparetta, all the repairs that we're still working on, because of course our schools are not at 100%. There's a lot of schools that still don't have their carpets, or, you know, there's things that are taking place as the children are in there and as we're teaching and working at the same time. So also the Fort Myers Beach is another school that we are working on, trying to figure out where do we go from here? Those students are being housed at St. Carlos Park right now, and so we are, you know, looking at what do we do. Part of that school is a historic building, and the rest was not. So we're having conversations on that. Nothing has been voted on as of yet, so it's just, we're still in the conversation part of that. And a lot of emotions, if you will. Let's see what else. And so with the elementary school for the beach, we have 3 phases that we're looking at as well. So that will be coming back before the board for us to have a conversation on that one. And we're looking at hopefully having 150 students in the end for that. I think that's pretty much it, other than the fact that we are, you know, steadily trying to make sure that we get all the schools up to par where they need to be, and all the different phases that we are, oh, here's some help right here. Thanks, guys. I'm trying to think of everything that we have been doing. So.
Oh, wow, that's a lot.
I know, I'm trying. So I think that's pretty much it right now, and next time at least I'll know, you know, better, you know, what you all want, so I can become really, really prepared.
Thank you so much.
So will the fund for Maya Beach coming back to the committee, the construction committee, for approval or allocations, how does that work?
For the Fort Myers Beach Elementary? Yeah, so they've done, 1 or 2 presentations to the board on that. Each time they've gone back and kind of gotten, community feedback to, you know, kind of further the direction and flesh out some of the details of some of the different options. And I think, the last time, those options had narrowed down a little bit more, and they got a little more feedback. So I think the next presentation, yes, would be to actually get that, final approval on the direction to move forward, you know, with all the, total construction costs and all the costs.
Would this committee be involved in that decision, or
No, that would be a board decision.
as a board decision?
That's a board decision.
Yeah, there is an ad hoc committee that is currently, and that's what I was speaking earlier to my friend here. I think that there is some confusion, I know, on the committees that I sat on. Policy 1.20 is a new policy that we're coming up with right now. And everyone knew exactly what their role was as far as an advisory committee, because I know the last time I was here, a lot of people kept saying, I heard people speaking about, don't we have to approve that site? Don't we have to approve this site? Does it need to come here? So I did hear that loud and clear, so I went back to look at the policy to say, does it say that it should come here first, which it does not say that. But there is an ad hoc committee that has been meeting with the Fort Myers Beach and the administrators on a weekly basis. So there's a lot of conversation being had.
Just adding to Debbie's comments, I'm not sure if it is the correct time or wait till the good of the order, but I served on the diversity committee for a few years, maybe about 5 years. And there was a specific goals for the committee. This is what we want to see. For example, we want to see all edible plants in schools, for example. That's one of the goals that diversity committee had in mind. And we work on it the whole year. And there was an outline for what the committee, we have, I've never seen such a big experience and educated people about engineering and construction in this area at all. This is a collection you barely can find. So, I just finished. So we want to have clear goals, what we want to achieve on this committee. I might be ignorant, this is maybe my first session, my second involvement in it. But we have to have clear goals. What is the committee going to serve for? Are we want to improve construction, we want to check facility management? What's our role, and we get involved and you divide us the way you think we can serve construction in Lee County education system.
I understand where you're coming from, and I think that it's something that will be great to discuss in the good of the order, because maybe it's time to review our policies. I want to take time from Ms. Jordan and the solar representation group, but we can revisit this after, if you don't mind.
And the only other one thing that I had forgotten, that we are doing the naming of QQ, which is Lehigh, the old Lehigh Acres Middle School.
Right.
So we have a principal that has already been placed there, and so the naming, we're going through the naming process of what the school will be named. It has,
It's already been shortlisted, right?
it has already been shortlisted, yes, to 5.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's all there for them to vote on right now, correct?
That'll be coming, well, it's out there online for everybody to go online and to vote for your favorite name. And then, so it's going through the process as we speak. And then we'll come to the board with the top 3.
Teal.
And a new principal's been assigned to that facility?
Joe, yep, he's from Harns Marsh, so he's the principal over there. He's dynamic, he's a really good guy.
And the kids that are right now there are gonna be moved back to.
There's no kids, right now, there are really no children there. They're part of Veterans Park, that Veterans Park
So they're
is
going to go
used,
back
part
to
of
the
that,
park?
part of the campus being used for that, but it's gonna be, Veterans Park is still gonna be a K-8. Veterans Park,
Yeah, no,
Of the
you're
arts.
doing good, you're doing good.
okay, I remember everything. And then you have the old Lambs, okay, which is now QQ until we rename that school. That will be designated just a middle school. And it has already been gutted out and refurbished and,
Well, Ms. Jordan, we have some positions in construction if you seem pretty.
yeah, no
pretty up
worries,
on
let me
that.
know.
So will there be any planned synergies between Lamb's campus and Veterans K that's out there now?
Probably
Separate.
the Black Box Theater eventually, because we are looking at putting the Black Box Theater out there to create that, out in the East Zone.
But they are 2 separate schools,
2 separate schools,
2 separate schools.
as they used to be. Just too much to make that mega school. It'd be like 3,000 or 4,000 kids, too much.
Okay,
Yeah, so thank you so much for allowing me to.
Thank you for the update on that.
thank you
Yeah.
for the update, Mr.
You're
Chairman.
welcome.
So the next item that we have, public comments, do we have anybody from the public? No, not tonight. So the next item on our agenda is the solar presentation update. Welcome, guys. Nice to see you.
Good to see you again. We do have some handouts, so presentation, some of the analysis and design, some of the cost estimating. So we've only brought 10 copies, so I guess we'll share it, you guys write it out. My name is Dan Bold, it's good to see everybody again, at least those who were here last time. This is our second time presenting on solar opportunities for Lee County. The last time that we were here, the task came to Bo to just look at the school was selected for Island Coast, so today's presentation basically walks through quickly who Bo is, the task for identifying, the savings at Island Coast Schools. And then just some of the changes going on both in utility market, some changes going on through the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, which offered some additional benefits and a $400 billion investment into renewables and some benefits that the school can actually see.
Real quick, Dan, I just see a couple puzzle faces and they're new faces, so they weren't here last time you were here, so maybe just take a small step back and just kind of what we did last time
Okay.
and how we got to this point.
Yep, so last time we came in, and as just part of, I think, the task for the Construction Advisory Committee, it was thought upon where could they look for savings or, you know, other means for sustainable goals for the district. So we came in and presented just some of the basics of solar energy, what our company does. And just to, you know, offer up, we'd be happy to do some, you know, pro bono analysis to see if this opportunity in solar would make sense for Lee County Schools to evaluate. Historically, FPL has been pretty low on energy pricing, but I think as we're all seeing, as the clock ticks and hurricanes hit, everybody's kind of taking their cut, so FPL is part of that group, increased costs, so that's what we did. We left, the group had made a decision to look at a single school and task boat to do it. In between now and then, there was a hurricane, so we are a little late getting back here, but happy to come back and present. So like I said, we're gonna run through just a quick bow introduction, the purpose of today's discussion, which I think is identified. Talk about Island Coast Schools, some of the energy production analysis that we performed, a little bit of design details, not super in-depth. Review some financial options, how you can fund these projects, how these things move forward. And then, you know, the big one, we'll just look at the cost savings, and then we just had some thoughts on potential next step for the advisory committee. So quickly on Bo, we are based in North Fort Myers. We are one of the few solar companies in South Florida. We have offices around the country. We have a main office in Chicago, Illinois, and then we have another 7 to 8 person team in Scranton, Pennsylvania. We do have employees kind of spread throughout the country, and this list continues to grow. Some are just remote workers, you know, post-COVID, everybody's kind of got that down. So currently we're at 30 plus, I say plus because we're hiring pretty often. Our main scopes, we have a group of developers, so we create like new opportunities, greenfield, brownfield, large solar facilities, you know, up to 3,000 acres. We've got a series of engineers and designers. We have environmental and ecological specialists, and we also have a full team of like project and construction managers. Currently, we've got 400 plus megawatts of solar assets through development and permitting. That number is probably up from when I made this slide. We've managed over a gigawatt of installations throughout our time. And then currently, I'm just doing some school info. We're working on 2 kind of wide scale portfolios in New Jersey for schools. And then also Illinois has got a pretty interesting program that they're running through their adjustable block program, which is very just complicated to go through. But the state of Illinois has commissioned renewable energies, primarily solar, as a vehicle to offset aging electrical infrastructure like nuclear facilities or old coal plants. So they've got a complicated program with a series of scoring. Schools actually in this, you know, run of scoring and points have come out as some of the highest rated opportunities that the state's really trying to drive developers to work with schools. So we've got the city of Galva's schools are all signed up and we're working, we've got their projects submitted to the program. And we're meeting with a series of superintendents and, you know, advisors for other schools to see if we can get their property under control and help them get some of the benefits. Just again, briefly, some of the services we offer. For our firm, we're primarily a professional service provider. We have developers, engineers, analysts. We are also partnered with builders. So for this project, we were looking at GenPro, which has lighting companies here in Florida and does just a high number of installations for, you know, a lot of school projects. We've just found them to be one of the best, most reliable contractors. They're basically all electricians. So we try to partner with good people, but for our firm, we're primarily, you know, design, engineering, analysis. All right, so some of the recent changes and why this is becoming even more of an enticing opportunity. If you look back historically, a number that I presented last time, the average electrical inflation comes out to about 1.4%. We were informed yesterday that Lee County just got its new electrical rates and it's up 9.38%, so a significant jump even over the analysis included in here because I didn't have time to rerun all the numbers. And there's no guarantee on that moving forward. I was reading, you know, notes on FPL and they had a 4-year plan for an 18% inflation base, so I mean they're definitely moving through that number. So not just here, I was just at a conference in California. California's inflation rate for electrical utilities is 14.2 predicted for 2023. So it's not just a Florida problem. In fact, typically FPL has been one of the better ones, but now that you're seeing this cost go up, this infrastructure aging, FPL has now become one of the just many utilities where the prices are just going through the roof. And anybody who's in Lee County Co-op, like me, my bill doubled in the last year, so. Some additional changes, this is out of the Biden administration with the Inflation Reduction Act. So part of that bill actually put $369 billion towards like renewable investments to help spur this along. But one of the biggest provisions in there, which is beneficial to you as a school district, is there is a 30% tax credit that comes with the purchase of solar equipment. Historically, a tax exempt institute would not be able to get a 30% tax credit. Under the rules of the IRA, the school district could technically just direct pay for that solar field and get the 30% tax credits. This is a kind of a first time in the ITC's history. So that's part of our analysis today is including that tax credit, but before to get that, and what I presented last time even was you'd have to go to a tax equity investor, have them technically buy the field and manage it, and then they take the tax credit, you just get, some of the savings. Now you guys could actually just direct buy and get the savings, so that's a first time. Another incentive is the environmental justice communities. Island Coast is not in there, but there are some potential additional incentives we could look at if we were looking portfolio-wide, because there are gonna be schools in like North Fort Myers and other areas that would qualify into this program, which the environmental justice communities is really, the drive is to push more money and resources into lower income communities, right, to help balance out the books. So that's what a big push there is, and we are sourcing those sites in Illinois right now. For anybody who's not familiar with how solar works, I have one very simple slide. Basically, panels are collecting, solar energy and converting it into DC electrical. You take that DC electrical, run it through an inverter, converts it to AC, and then you can run that actually just directly into your building, or if you have overflow production, you can push it back out to the grid. I'm happy to answer more questions on that, but I'm sure people probably get the concept. So, if you want to ask me later, I'm happy to explain more, but pretty simple equipment, pretty simple conceptually. All right, so Island Coast High School. We kind of updated the look of the layout. We ran this design through just an industry standard program for bankable assets called Helioscope. So we ran that to get our idea of how much production we're getting, compared it to the electric bill and the consumption from Island Coast High School. So we did look at it, the rates that they're currently paying, the consumption that they currently have. We took, a draft form of a design, then we used that to sort of create a financial breakdown, determine like our cost of energy, if we were actually just to put the solar system in, and compare that to what is actually being paid. And then, we did model for some assumed inflation. The analysis actually has 2.4% as our annual year-to-year inflation. Obviously, 9.3% is a tad over 2.4, so the analysis doesn't even capture that. And then we just also threw in, again, we kind of discussed it last time, but just different ways that you can fund or finance these projects. It could be, direct cash or through a third party or through a bank. There's a lot of options there. And then we basically, we're gonna provide sort of a go, no-go as to what solar makes sense here for this school. Some additional things that we just consider when looking at these is, the designs are real, so I know there's some questions over like, this is Florida, we have hurricanes, all that, There are design codes and standards. We would account for wind loading, and the connections and details would all be appropriate to meet the engineering standards for the area. We would look at seismic, we look at downward forces, we look at dead loads. Another thing that we're very cognizant of, like through the experience of putting these on, is just, you have to be cognizant of maintenance and walkways, and you have equipment on the roofs already for some of these facilities. How are you gonna get there? How are you gonna maintain it? So we do incorporate, setbacks, walkways, make sure that the equipment that's there can be maintained. Also, part of it is just performance monitoring. This is also usually through a computer program, and also energy, so you can get real time, 3-second data if you really want to see how your system was performing. But that can be monitored. There's a brain that kind of gets associated with it, but you can monitor it remote. So we can gain access to anybody. So the school district could look at that performance in a minute-to-minute basis. Which also makes some cool opportunities for explaining to kids too, like how the energy is working, how your savings are in, carbon offset. There's a bunch of stuff you can do through those programs. All right, so here's the meat of the analysis. We ran the helioscope to get a system size. And if you look, we came up with a system that creates about 1.4 million kilowatt hours annually. And if you look, you know, the consumption that we had was about 1.6 million kilowatt hours. So the solar was able to offset about, you know, 87% of that, so there's still a rollover where you'd be buying power from the utility. This isn't a race to zero, you can do that, but usually the cost point really doesn't make sense after a certain point. So as you can see throughout the year, you know, our sun resource is very good in the summer months. It doesn't necessarily match up with some of the times where you're busy, but you know, that's all considered in this program and run through. So it actually looks at an annual production, and then, you know, you can do 15 or 30-year projections. In those projections, you can also look at the degradation of the solar panels. Is the equipment performing in year 30 the way it is in year 1? No, but it is all accounted for, and these modules are now warranted for 35 or 40 years. So the equipment just keeps getting better and better, and these are bankable assets. You know, Goldman Sachs has $7 billion worth of solar projects. Chase just funded, you know, a series of solar assets around the country, so these things are predictable and sustainable. Now this is just more of that, you really just start to see, and again, this isn't even updated with the latest rate, I actually think we have 2 bumps in here. There was a bump between the analysis and now, but the schools didn't get the bills yet, and then they got notified of another increase. So there's actually 2 bumps in here for offset savings. But this just goes through, and it just shows you your initial investment in the equipment, which will be about 1.5 million. Here's a big change, that 465,000 is a tax credit you weren't able to get until that IRA passed. So that's a you know, year 1 full claim. And then in that next column, it just shows you your annual savings, and then it just accumulates. So, and as far as cash flow, that just models when you would pay the system back. This is modeled that it would be basically free at 11 years. With a 9% increase, I mean, this thing will be free at years 9, 8, 9. So, and this is just a chart that kind of shows year over year. Once this investment's been placed, you know, the thing will continue to produce power for a long time. All right, and then just some of the financing options. So there's a couple different ways that schools have paid for these. You can always just self-fund cash and just put, you know, $1.5 million out there and buy a system, and then it's yours. Even with the cash, you can still take the tax credit, that's a new thing. What a lot of public schools we're seeing now, they're starting to look at bridge loans, so they don't actually have to put the cash out of pocket. So there could be a small finance fee in here for actually financing the system, but you can, even with the bridge loan, take the tax credit as well, which is probably what I would recommend if you guys are looking at like a single project. There's other options too, where we could put together an energy savings plan. I could bring in a PPA or offtake provider. Typically, they take 20% of the savings, so every month they'll just take a cut off the bill. You still get the savings, you have no money out of pocket, and they will also absorb, you know, the long-term operations and maintenance of the facility. But you do, I mean, if you pay 20%, I mean, you're paying that for the lifetime of the system, so you can imagine over time, that is a big fee, but there are firms, and I actually just met with Green Day Financing yesterday. I sent them the analysis that we did for the school, they sent back they would be interested. So these options are there, and then they would take the tax credit, so they can capitalize on the tax credit as well, being a private entity. And then, yeah, so kind of the determination, and you know, solar in Florida is great, maybe not politically, but sun resource wise, it's excellent. Savings for Island Coast High School are definitely there. I just did some quick updates to the slide today. Our year 1 had an estimate of, you know, $86,000 in year 1 savings. With that increase of 9.4%, I mean, your year 1 savings will go up to $94,000. The rest of the numbers are just based on the original analysis. So 30-year total for just Island Coast High School over the lifetime of the solar array, which we modeled out to 30 years, you're saving $3.8 million, which is 171% return on your investment. System's completely paid off in year 11. And then just some, you know, I just did some math here. We obviously didn't look at the rest of the schools, but looking at your 2021 full boat energy bill, you had about 159 million kilowatt hours that you paid for to FPL or to Lee County Co-op. So the Island Coast at 1.4 million was roughly a 1% offset. So just say that you deployed solar resources to offset 20% of your bill, you know, district-wide, you know, over 30 years, you can project that savings out to like $70 million. So, and that's just with the 20% offset. And then you were formally notified that your FPL rate increase for 2023 is 9.38%. Lee County Co-op has a 100% buy requirement from FPL. So if FPL goes up 9.3%, Lee County's probably gonna go up 10 or 10.5, because they have an all service agreement. Additionally, with the IRA changes, you can capitalize on that tax credit, which just makes your funding options so much better, so much more beneficial. So it is the recommendation of Bow Renewables that you should consider solar for Island Coast. And if so, I mean, we recommend it as a pilot project, put some timelines in there. Coordinating through LCEC and SDL is probably the longest lead. But yeah, just some recommended next steps. You know, for us, we know that investing in solar portfolio-wide on every school we got would be a huge leap and a big cost. So while we're all sort of figuring out how it works and where the true savings are, you know, we do recommend maybe a pilot project. You know, Island Coast seems like a great starting point. It's got super high utility rates. It's got good roof space. We think, you know, funding one project, see how it works, everybody in the construction advisory committee gets comfortable with it, and then decide if you wanted to go wider with the reach to see if you could increase the savings. So then I just put some timelines in. And that is it, I believe.
I think it was.
Yep, yeah, I tried to push two, because I
Can you
figured
go
it
back
was.
one slide?
I
Can you
noticed,
go back one slide while we're talking, asking questions?
I noticed that, the design considers all the panels on the roof.
Yes.
So, in the life of the panels, it's about 30 years, the life of the roof is 20. So, when we have to replace the roof halfway through, or what happened with the panels?
Super easy. Basically, you just unbolt them, take them off, replace your roof, and then you'll probably have to switch out the bolts that you put in because they're usually single use to make the structural requirements, but then you just bolt them back in. We actually just did it at a college out west, and I mean, it's like not a complicated process at all. You just take them off, put them back.
I think you should.
They don't need permission to speak. No, it's, I work for Collier County and I do capital improvement project. I refuse to put anything on the roof, period. Because our maintenance guy have to go over there on the roof, and that is a problem in the summer, in the heat.
Mm-hmm.
Two is penetration, you're just talking about bolting the system into
This
an
would be
existing
a
structure.
roof penetration. It's the only way to meet hurricane
How
code.
many penetration you're gonna do to the roof, and how you seal it?
Yeah, and there is leak
And then if it's
testing and
leak,
structural
then you
analysis.
guys gonna say, well, the roof leak or my panel leak,
Yeah.
make up a problem.
I mean, what I could say to win all of those
Hold on a
issues.
second, let me get my thought first. I haven't seen a roof that lasted 20 years without really going up there and do a repair.
Yeah.
So anytime we need to do a repair, we have to go right there and fix the roof. Take the bolt, the panels off, do the repair, and then put it back on.
Mhm.
And it is becoming, there's nothing, I like the concept, don't misunderstand me, but we need to get off the roof. Do you have available
So,
land around the school to do so?
You can do, some of your schools do have land. I would say if you guys decided to deploy one on the roof, you'd probably be the like 3,050th school to do it, so they're definitely done and it's a common thing. Leak testing is a big thing that has to be ensured at the beginning, and checked as part of routine maintenance. As far as the on and off, it really is, it's like, it's just unbolting that, and I would say,
You are in the maintenance.
I don't know how often you're like
County,
pulling things off the roof and putting things back, but we have not historically had maintenance complaints with the solar array being up there. And like these have been now deployed for 10, 12 years, so I think people are getting more familiar. There is a familiarity hurdle that you need to get through, and that's why, you know, even part of the design considerations, there are other elements on the roof. Your AC units are probably on the roof. So we incorporate the existing equipment into the design, because we have shading and issues that we're gonna avoid anyway. Plus, we do look at setbacks, walkways, to make sure that the maintenance folks can get where they need to go. If the roof does need replaced, this would probably help extend the life of the roof in a lot of ways. You're keeping UV rays off of it, you know. Actually, if you drove around Lee County after the hurricane, you notice most of the solar roofs were still in place, where a lot of the regular shingle or other roofs were not. It's an additional structural support.
It's what held my roof on.
Yeah, so, I mean, there are some ancillary benefits, and yes, there's some maintenance things that would have to be worked through. I'd be happy to send you like an operations and maintenance plan for one of these. But what I would say is it's more complicated, I think, in concept. When you actually get into the practice of it and your maintenance crew gets used to it, it's really not a big deal.
What about the existing structure?
It needs to be evaluated. That would be part of the design consideration, full structural. Yeah, I mean, we just went to do one in New York and the roof wasn't gonna take it, so, yeah. They should have caught it in design, we were coming on to managing this construction, and we did an additional check, and we're like, this is not gonna hold it, and then they had to do some structural upgrades, but.
It looks like you occupied almost 80% of the roof, I mean, you're using every inch of that roof.
There was 2 sections to the roof, we were only in the front portion, so there was a decent amount that wasn't, and like I said, that's like, you know, like the helioscope design, where you plug it in and then you remove some panels and put in some setbacks, there'd be a more thorough
Can you
design.
bring back the panel coverage? I'm sorry, that's a continuation. My last point, and then I'll.
Yeah, as you can see, we're taking up a good bit in the front, but we avoided this for shading and some other reasons, other equipment. And we would, you know, in a more detailed design, we would make sure access to everything was there. This is
Well,
just.
we have the ability to do 100%
Oh, wow.
of the solar panel, because you still have some roof left.
Yeah, I mean, we can look to expand that.
Okay, so, we were kicking around some other ideas in terms of where they would be, placed, the panels.
Yeah.
Do you have any designs where those panels are perhaps over the parking lot?
So what I did for that was just kind of do a cost projection for you, and if you're gonna move into like a carport structure, which would be easier maybe to sell, you're probably looking at a 40% increase on your construction costs, so you're gonna take a hit on your savings, but it's totally doable.
Right.
For the purpose of this exercise, I wanted to look at the most economic option, and then you can project, if you have ground area where you could put a solar array, which would work potentially at Island Coast, but you don't have that at every facility, and I don't feel it makes sense to run a pilot project for something you can't repeat.
Right.
You're probably only looking like a 22 to 25% increase in your construction cost.
So
But
most,
to go to the carports, you're probably looking 40, 45, there's concrete, it's 14 feet tall, there's a lot of steel.
that's right, yeah. But what happens is, oftentimes you need a lot of property if you're gonna do this and not use the building.
Yeah.
But every school has a lot of, parking.
Yeah.
And that can be a consideration, especially if the concern is penetrations in the roof.
Yeah, I mean, and you're just
Does that
taking
get-
it a million,
Yeah,
point
that-
two.
Right, that, there is an issue with solar panels as relates to penetration.
Yeah,
Probably gotten better now because you're doing it more.
Yeah.
But we've done a lot of repairs around the penetrations with solar panels.
Yeah.
So,
and that is, you know, especially down here, like, you know, in some areas up north, you can get away with, you know, almost like a ballastic block, because the wind load's pretty minimal,
right,
but you're not meeting hurricane code here without anything but a structural attachment.
right.
And we're seeing that a lot more, like all the New Jersey schools are panel quad structurally attached. So, but yeah, that's one of the biggest concerns, that's why we do a pre and a post and a continued monitoring of those penetrations. So you have your baseline too, so there's no, that roof was leaking before, you know, you do, all that has to be incorporated into the design and the initial kickoff of the project.
I had a question on tax credits.
Yep.
It's my understanding, maybe I'm wrong, that school board, government entity is exempt from paying taxes.
Yeah.
So how does a tax credit work for an entity that doesn't pay?
That's what the IRA, historically, you didn't have a tax base, so you couldn't get a tax credit. Now you just get a refund on the purchase of the equipment, up to the tune of 30%.
So the government writes a check back to the district?
Yep, they offset the price of the equipment.
And
That's
so-
the biggest change in the IRA for public.
And so you add 10% to it and we can get it in the parking lot then, right?
If we can go ahead a couple of slides, the one with the graphs. Yep, this one. I mean, I really appreciate that graph, especially the one on your left hand corner. And can the school system sell back
Yes,
some of these extra?
we didn't incorporate it, but Governor DeSantis actually vetoed the bill from FPL to eliminate net metering credits, which is like essentially getting a credit on your power bill for pushing power back to the grid. These months you would be pushing power back. So you could get a credit, and that's not included in the analysis. We typically leave it out because we prefer to look at it more conservatively to see if the investment's worth it. But yes, there are still net metering rules on the books thanks to a veto from the governor last year. And you would be getting essentially money back, the meter would roll backwards.
But your hookup to the grid can help that, right?
Correct, so we would still have to coordinate the interconnection of this system with FPL, which is gonna take probably 3 to 6 months to get them to approve the design and let us know it's okay. And yes, you would essentially push power back to the grid, cause this would be grid tied. It's not an off-grid system, it's a grid tied system.
In the summer, this is when we need it, but you estimate how much? I mean, how much would it?
I didn't do that number for this analysis, but I can certainly email it over by the end of the week or something, to see what those projected, rollbacks could be. And then you sell back, so it's like they charge you 11 cents a kilowatt hour, you sell it back at like 3. So you don't get like a 1-for-1, but you do get credit.
You had mentioned the PPA.
Yes,
Is Florida allowing these now, or is that still?
energy savings plan, yeah. FPL language, up to 2 meters P6, yeah.
So I understand the solar more on a residential side just because I have it, but on a commercial entity, are there battery cells that are also available so that during the hurricane, we could shut off the grid to say bye-bye?
You could look to incorporate those.
Okay.
They're not part of this analysis. We did look at them, but they're costly at this point, so it would have to be a choice that you wanna make. Now tax credits do extend to the batteries, so that's a good win. And battery technology is really moving faster, so that's something that you could look to incorporate here. You can even break out that cost and add them later.
Right.
We would probably just take that consideration in when you put the inverters in.
Right.
To make sure that you could operate off-grid with the batteries. Also, if you were just looking to keep the system functioning in the case of a hurricane, you don't need a large storage.
Correct.
You don't have to store the power, you just
Right.
need enough power stored to sync with the inverters to turn the system back on and it'll run all day.
Right, okay.
That's just one of the,
I just wasn't on the commercial side.
same technology, all the same.
Good.
Just usually higher capacity stuff on big projects.
There's a concept with governments that you don't, with money that a government borrows, they don't buy items that don't last as long as the loan. Okay, so you don't, if you have a 20-year loan on something, you don't get something like a cover for a playground that only lasts 10 years. Does that make sense to everybody?
Correct.
I'm thinking of the opposite of that, which is we have the 1% sales tax now that's bringing in money, but it could go away, so if you have that money and you spend it on something that pays farther into the future, you get to take the benefit of that tax money and play it out for a longer period.
Yeah, that's good.
Does that make sense?
So I got a question for Eric. So what is next? This company did the analysis for this particular school. Did they work in another phase or?
So they did this analysis actually per the request of this group. So now that y'all have heard this, you can give a recommendation to the board, and that recommendation could be that, the construction maintenance department further investigate and work with a vendor like this, or, we have our public procurement laws that we have to follow. But yes, I guess it would be your direction to the board on what would this committee like to see the next step be?
Before, can we get your guys' opinion on the maintenance side of it, and what do you thought of?
So both Scott, our director of construction, and Barb, our director of maintenance, have, I think, similar concerns about the roofs, and the penetration, and, we're right now chasing leaks on a daily basis with some of our temp roofs on. So, obviously trying to get out of that business. We're, open to looking at it. I think we do realize that there could be some cost savings. We do have some other kind of smaller, structures with satellites, with solar that they may have tested in the past. I like the idea of non-roof options, whether it be parking lots, extra land, vacant property. So I think we're kind of similar to this committee as, not sold on the roof, would like to see where other opportunities may lie.
What about your equipment for the solar, what is that, I mean, do we have room inside the electrical room to accommodate?
We didn't get to do like a physical inspection, but I would anticipate, yeah, it's not super big. And we can put stuff in the electrical room, I mean, the stuff is outdoor rated, so we can keep equipment on the roof if we wanna just like, come to schools in New Jersey, just the inverter walls on the roof. So it really depends, but I don't anticipate, being restricted from being able to, that's never limited the ability to put in a facility.
How old is that roof on the water? Is it time to replace the roof? I mean, that's what it's time to do this project, is when you replace your roof. This way, you're able to structure at the same time.
Yeah, I'm not sure, I don't recall it being on any list of roofs to be replaced, so.
How old is Island Coast School?
And the last point is, you still need FPL. The system does not replace FPL. This
Correct.
is,
That's right.
if
It's
FPL
not a
lost power,
holistic
the school loses power.
Correct, yeah, and this is grid tied, so you would need FPL for repower, and you would still need FPL for, your overconsumption of your solar. When I look at it, and if you wanted to look at the parking lots, we could get to zero, the incentives get worse as you chase that final. I mean, it probably just makes sense at some point to buy a little bit of power. But the way I look at it is, this isn't a holistic swap, but it's an opportunity to save a whole lot of money. Even if it's not 100% one for one. It's still, like I said, even if you were able to reduce your power bill 20, yeah, I mean, it's
How
over
much
time.
cost to replace, to bring the system down and to allow the maintenance guy to replace the roof and put it back?
2007?
The cost, just labor hours, I mean, and then your bill, because you're not gonna be getting solar power, so your electric bill goes up. But yeah, I mean, you'll see that it's not an overly, take it down in a week, put it up in a week after it's all been installed and run. Maybe two, depending on the size.
So as a roofing consultant for Lee County Schools, having done a lot of the roofs around here, doing this kind right here, I'm not too crazy about putting that stuff up on the roof, because I know what's involved in fixing the roof, and chasing down leaks and all that.
Yeah.
I think if we're gonna try to do something like that, it should be underground where it's easy to maintain and not causing problems with this existing building structure.
Yeah, that's fine, I mean, the way we can put it anywhere, it's your money, right? So if you want to increase the cost of a construction project by 25 or 40%, that's a choice you're welcome to make, we can design it to go anywhere. We are seeing these deployed, nationwide, we fly into Philly, fly into New York, it's rooftop upon rooftop solar. Look at Europe, 15-year histories, 20-year histories of all the rooftops, so we're definitely sensitive that putting it on the roof does create this potential issue for structural leaks or, additional considerations. We're happy to look at it in the parking lot.
Yes.
I just gave you the most economic approach, but if the desire was to put more money into the construction of these facilities, it is not out of the solar norm to put a carport. If you drive down 41, or is it? There's a bank that just put 3 in, but I can't remember the intersection.
Suncoast has them on.
Yeah, I think it was Suncoast.
And I like
We were
that
part
it's
of that.
Suncoast, because I
Yeah. We were part of that installation, so they're in the area too, there are.
Or like Flea Masters, that like their entire thing.
Their whole thing is.
So, yeah, and their roofs stayed on.
Oh, no, they took a hit, they had to redo their roof.
Well,
They took a hit.
but I'm just like, this is, it's just silly to just keep paying into a grid that costs insane amounts of money every year.
So we need to wrap up the presentation because we're doing it already, but, this is a
One final
committee we
note.
need to discuss.
One final note, if you would consider, a design that perhaps goes over the parking lot, because that area is already there. You don't have to buy any more property, because I think one of the discussions was buying enough property to accommodate this. The parking lot is already there. If there was a way to incorporate this design in the parking lot, it could be a shade area as well.
Yeah, the condos in Florida, those would pay parking spots too, so it's like.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I could do, and I don't think I even need to come back to present it, I can email over like a quick cost analysis, based on a similar system size, just over the parking lot, so you can see the cost difference in the saving delta over that time. I mean, you're still likely gonna save money with these rising rates, it's just less and it's a bigger investment upfront, so it's really just the desire.
Can we continue this conversation
Yeah,
next
as a
month?
committee, we need to continue this conversation so we can do recommendations.
Let's take off then, you wanna adjourn?
Happy hour.
I'd like to make a motion that this committee recommend solar for the rooftops to the school board.
You wanna do that motion?
Well, maybe we should have a vote.
So somebody's gotta second it first.
Anybody wanna second the motion? Mr. Ringland to recommend solar to the board for the schools,
I'd like to say.
okay? Discussion?
I think it's a bad idea to put on just a roof
I
for
heard that.
2007.
Well, let me ask one more question. Dan, is the maintenance for this project for Island Coast on your hands or is it on the school board's hands, the existing staff?
It could be either, it just depends on how we fund it and budget it. You can push it onto a third party. The budget's in it.
Who owns the water leak through, if it happens through the attachment?
So there would be your standard like construction warranties.
That would cover their y'all's warranty, so if there's a roof leak associated with the solar panel installation, you
That's
guys
why
are
we
coming out to chase it down.
Yeah, it's standard construction warranty, right, so probably once
That's what makes
every year product.
So I have to finish up.
So you have leaks in the.
So it's not the school staff making staff trying to chase it. They make phone call, you send people.
Point of order.
Can we propose a motion over the motion?
Point of order, what I would suggest, and it would be an addendum to your motion, that we vote to perhaps look at it further with those that are in charge. And then, because it'll be more discussion, that it has to be more discussion. Opposed to a motion to accept it as it is. Because there'll be another discussion about where would the thing go? Because that's the biggest hang up. They clearly don't want it on roof.
So how
And I think your two options are roof or parking lots.
Yes, yes.
Because you don't have enough land, I don't think it makes sense to go buy land to.
How about the motion to continue this discussion next week, so we all have time to digest the information that was provided today? And,
I think in the past, you didn't have the quality installers, you didn't have the kind of engineering details that you need for roof penetrations. And the last times that solar was put on roofs, it was left up to the school board to do the maintenance.
Someone gonna do the maintenance on this?
So we got a motion and we got a
yeah,
second.
we're gonna
Let's vote.
move second.
Yes, go for the vote.
There's no discussions, let's vote, so
With the
in favor?
What was the motion?
Oh, are we-
He would have to accept the addendum to the motion.
The addendum is to continue the conversation
Yes. Do you accept that?
into next month or next meeting.
Next month, next meeting, yeah. Okay,
Just
So the motion is to continue the
discussion.
discussion, one more meeting before we make a recommendation, or we decide to make a recommendation to the board to accept.
And is anybody seconding the amendment?
Second,
Oh, thank you.
double second.
Okay.
Any more discussions?
Just to be sure we're clear,
In favor?
what's the motion and what's the discussion?
Judy, will you
What's the
repeat
motion is about?
Not really, not until I hear it on the recorder.
Okay, so,
the motion is that this committee recommends to the school board that we favor putting solar on a roof instead of we're gonna wait until next month.
that's my addition to, or change, if you will, to your motion is that we discuss it again.
He doesn't wanna go down that road. He wants us to vote right now on making a recommendation to the school.
That
So let's
we-
vote.
So we have a second, we have a motion, we have a second, we already discussed it, we can go on a second round for a new motion, so we already discussed it, so.
Okay, so that we clear, the motion is that, to do what you said is to make the recommendation, correct?
That's right.
Okay, so that's what we vote on, right? Okay.
And who seconded that?
Second?
Okay, all right.
So in favor?
So was the,
Four,
so was the motion amended?
six.
Okay,
Can we get a vote and everybody raise their hands high so we can see the vote?
Now,
So
this
this is
is,
in favor of the motion.
In favor to approve, to recommend to the board the approval of installing solar in the Lee County schools starting with this,
On the roof.
on the roof, yeah. 3, 4, 5, 6.
Six.
In favor, opposed? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So,
that's
we're gonna
bad.
do a second.
Okay, so now I got a motion to put on the floor, okay?
Okay.
Okay, my motion is that we discuss it again because we wanna consider how we can have this done without putting this solar panel on the roof. So another discussion about it, not cutting it out, but another discussion of, at the next meeting about how we'll go about getting, the solar panels done so it can be recommended
I second
to the
motion.
board. That's my
We
motion.
have a second.
who's second, please?
Are you?
Thank you.
But to clarify, not to cut out option A on the roof, just to discuss option B, other location.
The discussion is to come up with the other options for us to
Yes,
evaluate.
right.
And then come back always. And we also need probably a report from the facility manager, condition of the existing.
He said,
Without anything of
Any
the,
questions and discussions on that?
that's my discussion.
So if I heard him correctly, he said make a recommendation so that we discuss it again, so that we can recommend it. So
Absolutely.
that's really the goal of recommending it, for sure. Something, yeah.
Yes, yes.
I would not be offended.
Okay.
No, it's my understanding is that we discuss it again, and then we see if we recommend it or not.
But that's not his motion.
Okay, yeah, but the discussion is, we have a discussion and it'll be at the beginning, we'll have that whole discussion opposed to after this gentleman, and they've done their presentation and then we have only a few minutes to discuss it. My objective is, and in my motion is to discuss it so that we can come together as a group with more, and I'm for, 5 being more than 4, but I like consensus, and then I think we'll be able to go around the table and have a spirited debate about, what would be best in terms of the solar panels and where they sit. So my motion is that we have another discussion next meeting. That's my motion.
On location in general, or just, cause I think the thing was like, Russ wants to put it on the roof, other people don't wanna put it on the roof. You just wanna have a discussion in general on like best practices of where we could possibly consider it.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily underground, it's not in outer space, it's to be determined.
Yes.
I just have a question, if you can help us with examples,
Clarissa,
examples of what you have.
was there,
It was second.
It was, we got it.
and everybody voted on it?
No, we are discussing.
Okay,
So can we vote, please? In favor,
On the motion. To further discussion.
to further discussion? Any opposed?
was that 10 people?
Everybody in favor?
10 hands, okay, thanks. 10 voted for, 5 voted against,
I'm opposed.
I'm the one that
I'm a
opposed.
sole opposer.
okay.
So I was just suggesting to the gentleman that if he can give us examples of what they've done before, similar companies, roof, and what is the difference in power, what is the difference in maintenance, how it affects different types of roofs. I'm sure you have 30 years, I think, in experience.
We did like 45 last year. Yeah, what I could do is I'll get like a standard operations and maintenance plan for a rooftop. I will also provide like a design for a rooftop that will show the structural connections and the layout. I'll also do a construction projection for moving it to the parking lot. Because one of the reasons that we recommended a pilot project is, I know there's a lot of concern over the roof, and I get it, totally appreciative of it, but if you do one project and you decide that it's really not as scary as it seems, that could be like $30 or $40 million in savings. So it's a big choice to make, on some assumptions that it's gonna create problems. But we can certainly do a projection on a carport, so you can see that difference in delta, and then if you were to do that district-wide, what that cost would project out to.
So would it be,
Appreciate, and any information that can be
Yeah,
provided
right,
that can work for our meeting will be great,
Yes.
so we can discuss this further.
While we talk, we were
Got a finger.
Okay,
I just got one question. Do you have any historical data for the schools that you've done in the past or doing now that identifies how many leaks there were or any issues related to the bigger concern here?
we do a lot of the construction management and inspection. There's the company that we're working with on, that we would look to install this one, has a series of roofs that do an operations and maintenance on, so I'll pull some data on the story. They're probably not 20 years out, but you've got a bunch in the last
Yeah,
like 3
so
to 5 years.
I think that might
Yeah.
ease some
Yeah, 'cause and I think the leak concern is primarily pretty,
That's the biggest
comes
thing.
pretty quick.
okay, let's go to the good of the order, if you have more concerns,
Thank
please
you.
address they are, because we have people from the school district in this room. So, we have the motion passed, so let's go to the good of the order, if you
The
will
good of the
start.
order that I mentioned in the beginning, that we just, if we can review again the purpose of the committee, you know, what goals do we have this year or for the next years? You know, what we can improve in the construction and facility management of what we have here. I want it to be clear to myself, I might be ignorant about it.
My time.
Yes, sir.
So what I will say is, if we move in that direction, they're the only folk, who can make this happen. What I do like, and what I always preach is local participation. They have a local firm that's right here. I think that's really, really important that we, make our economy robust in the folk who live here, work here, pay taxes here, raise their families here.
I'm hungry.
You're hungry too?
so just, hopefully we can get this material to Julie early enough where she can send it out to all of us so we can review it
And
before our
include
next
it in the
meeting.
agenda, and include it in the agenda, so it needs to go to.
So that we don't review it while we're sitting here and discussing it, we can review it first and then come here prepared to discuss. That's all I've got.
When's the next meeting? First Monday? First Monday.
So it's gonna be
April 12th. We'll look to at least get it a week ahead of time.
Alright, so
That's all we got.
to just to expand on,
That's it.
no, I know one more thing. I pulled on the Lee County School Board, the purpose of the construction committee shall be, that's to expand on what you have said, shall to provide input, advice, and support to the 5-year capital plan. This committee shall also review proposed new construction and renovation project. All right, and review plans for compliance with safety and life issues.
What's the
We haven't
goal
seen
for this
anything.
year though?
I mean,
What's the goal for this year?
For that.
right, and we haven't seen any, we have so much talent in this room. But nobody has approached us, say, hey, what is our plan, here's our new construction plan, here's site planning, we haven't really put as much input as we should. That's my,
Thank you.
I like the idea of the local participation.
I was gonna say, I agree with Mr. Tobler.
I agree first.
Of all the areas we can delve into, most all of them are growing in costs. Labor, energy, construction, land, all growing. So we should be after the biggest delta, where's the biggest possible savings for the school system.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
Who motioned, favor? Was that Dana? Oh, you did, Dana? Okay.
Good to see you. Here or outside? In here?
Anywhere you want. You're welcome.
Thank you for the reminder.